Hey everybody, here's what's coming up tonight on Now. We'll have the emotional story of a woman who is dealing with the opioid epidemic in our state, not just at work, but on a personal level as well. You'll want to hear her story.
And we have the disturbing reason why 3 student athletes were kicked out of their high school in Ellsworth. Tennyson Coleman will have that story.
I remember the kid from Bonnie Eagle couldn't get the picture in the yearbook with him holding a rifle. A lot of people talking about that. We'll update you.
This is News Center Now.
I got his phone back. I saw that he had called our local detox facility. He'd called Spring Harbor. He had tried to find his own way out, and he couldn't. And that's the reality of what drug addicts in our state are facing every day.
One of the coordinators of Operation Hope, a place where people who have issues with substance use can go to get help, opens up about the death of her brother. It's a story about loss and about hope. Hello everybody, I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Christina Rex, in for Amanda Hill. We'll have that Operation Hope story later on Now. But first, we're learning more information about an incident in which 3 student athletes from Ellsworth High School have been charged for sexual misconduct.
Yeah, now they've been kicked out of school as well. News Center's Tennyson Coleman has the latest on this situation.
Controversy in Hancock County. Police have charged 3 Ellsworth High School student athletes aged 14, 15, and 16 with misdemeanors for unlawful sexual touching, assault, and criminal threatening. Crimes investigators say were committed against another boy. The students have not been identified due to school policy and also because of their ages.
You're not told who the bully is 9 out of 10 times. You're not, you just don't have that recourse of being able to stand up or protect your child while they're not with you.
Jody Perry is frustrated over the allegations. She has a daughter who attends the school.
It's tragic.
School Superintendent Daniel Higgins says the school department took swift action once they heard of the allegations.
The Ellsworth School Department and Ellsworth High School's most important priority is the physical, emotional, and social safety and well-being of our student body and staff.
Superintendent Perry says the 3 student athletes involved were all expelled indefinitely, but some parents like Perry say that's just not enough.
Obviously, there are criminal proceedings, but I think there needs to be programs in the school. There needs to be outlets. There needs to be something happening for our kids.
Police say the student athletes were not arrested. They were instead summoned to court within the next 60 days, and if they're convicted, they could face punishments of up to a year in a juvenile detention center, community service, and/or fines.
But in this particular case, it wasn't required for us to make an arrest because we had, cooperated. The individuals were involved were all cooperated with the investigation.
In Ellsworth, Tennyson Coleman, News Center.
Earlier, we reported that the students were charged with sexual assault. That is actually not the case. They're charged with unlawful sexual touching and assault, both of which are not felonies.
Switching gears, remember the Bonnie Eagle student who wanted his senior yearbook picture to be him posing with his hunting rifle?
Well, that story aired just less than a week ago, and now it's sparked debate across the country. We caught up with high school senior Wade Gelinas to see how he's dealing with all that attention.
I usually get up at 3:30.
When you hear Wade Gelinas talk about hunting,
You go till school starts.
you know
Shot a moose and a turkey.
it's his passion.
I froze. I just said, hey, there's a big buck right there.
That passion is what has gotten him nationwide attention.
There's New York Post, Seattle Times, and Fox News, and now Time Magazine. It's crazy.
It all started with a Facebook post of Wade holding his hunting rifle, his senior picture that he submitted for the school yearbook.
All the attention, I still can't believe it, just over a little Facebook post, me ranting a little bit, that it's went this big.
Now, Wade's story and his love for hunting have been picked up nationwide.
I like all these news stations and everybody reaching out to me, and I'd love to get it out there and make a change.
But despite the attention, school policy hasn't changed like Wade hoped it would. And he still had to submit a different yearbook photo. He's still hopeful he'll convince administrators to change their minds, especially after all the support he says he's been getting at school.
Almost every person that I'm friendly with and know, they've all come up to me and said, that they're on my side and think it's okay.
But he was not expecting all of that attention.
Absolutely not. Not even close. He was shocked.
So it might have brought down your mood today, but we did finally get some of that much needed rain.
We got a lot of that coming too, Lee. What a change of patterns here as the heavy stuff just now moving in through Vermont and western parts of New Hampshire. Today was obviously a spotty day as far as rain. We had some gusty winds in there, and it's setting the stage for 2 more days of much heavier rain. This doesn't look that bad, right? This is the system that we're dealing with. It's relatively narrow. What's interesting is we're not going to get much eastward movement with this system once it moves in tomorrow. So it's going to stay over Maine through the day tomorrow and through tomorrow night, and through Thursday and Thursday evening, just kind of waving back and forth over the state with heavy bands of rain. Gusty winds that were 30 in Portland last check, 23 right now, 20 in Rockland, sustained around 15 to 20 miles an hour, and the winds will only get worse overnight tonight, particularly over western and southern Maine. Wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour a possibility. It's pouring through much of the day tomorrow. Some of the heaviest rain concentrating itself over down East Maine. Guys, the rainfall totals from this storm plus another one next Monday could be in excess of 6 inches. We'll talk more about that in a moment.
All righty, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, so if you had a burning desire to read about theoretical physics, expanding universes,
Of course.
I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I read that, right? There's a new release that's out for you this week.
But it may be a little hard to get. Yesterday, Stephen Hawking's 1966 PhD thesis was made available free for download by Cambridge University. But then it broke the internet. Tens of thousands of people all over the world are trying to access properties of expanding universes, and the website can't keep up. Most people are getting error messages.
Yeah, not from me.
No, I didn't look that one
up.
I'm
going to wait. I'm going to wait until it slows down.
I wanted to wait till we got everything in, in check.
Got it. All right, still to come on now. Operation Hope in Scarborough has helped hundreds reclaim their lives after a battle with addiction. Coming up on now, for the first time on television, the program's coordinator shares her family's story and how her brother lost his battle but saved so many others from the same fate.
Also ahead.
My dream was to play guitar and sing and make music. And next thing I know, I'm selling my body for money. They knew where my family lived. And if I ever snitched on them or turned them into the police, basically, they had a gun and knew how to use it.
Across the country, girls are promised opportunity and financial stability, only to be tricked into selling their bodies for sex. Today's installment of the investigative series Selling Girls focuses on the survivors, looking back on how they were unwillingly forced into the sex trade.
Traffickers are targeting teens online. It's where they lure those kids in. It's also the most common place to sell them for profit.
These are the average suburban kids.
They're promising them the world and then delivering them into hell.
Sit your daughter down and let her know. There's people out there really ready to manipulate her.
I grew up in church, straight A student, pretty typical girl next door. I went to an online dating site and met a guy. I am told that he's a music producer. You ready? Yep. My dream was to play guitar and sing and make music. And so when he asked if I wanted to go and make music, I didn't hesitate and was like, yeah, sure.
Was there ever a music studio?
No, there never was. I never saw any instruments, never saw any recording equipment. It was all a lie.
Have you ever been sad and confused, and have you ever felt like you had to choose?
And next thing I know, I'm selling my body for money, and $30,000 later, I haven't kept any of the money. They've taken everything. They knew where my family lived. And if I ever snitched on them or turned them into the police, basically, they had a gun and knew how to use it.
These traffickers are not driving around in a little white van looking at who they're gonna kidnap. They were like, well, how much do you make here? And she's like, $7.50. And they're like, oh, and you work so hard. And they would talk to the managers and be like, y'all need to give her a raise. They noticed her. And
she hadn't been noticed
before. So what are we gonna do tomorrow?
They promised me more money, and honestly, like, the money sounded really good. You know, at the point where we were at, it sounded really good.
Supposedly she was on her way to Wisconsin to go sell purses around the States.
That was the story.
That was the story. The back page ad was 18-year-old Latina, new in town, looking to have fun. I felt mad. I felt beyond mad. I was raged. I started thinking like a panicking mother. I kept trying to call her, and it kept going to voicemail. I felt out of control, like I had no control of the situation. It's hell. It's a living hell that you gotta live day in, day out. With some of the things that she's had to do, some of the things she's seen, she will never be able to undo them.
The internet is not the only place where traffickers seek out their victims. Tomorrow, we'll learn how those predators can be hiding right in plain sight.
And if you or someone you know are a survivor, there are resources available. Call the number on your screen if you need to talk to someone or reach out to one of these groups. Now we'll be right back. The opioid epidemic and its grip on our state show no signs of stopping.
Now, for one Maine woman, this issue impacted her on multiple levels. She's a crime analyst for the Scarborough Police Department, heads up a program to help drug addicts, and had to watch her own brother struggle with the disease.
For the first time, Jamie Higgins of Operation Hope sat down with us to bravely share her painful story.
When Operation Hope opened in Scarborough on October 1st, 2015, coordinator Jamie Higgins, who works for the Scarborough Police Department, had her brother Devin, a recovering addict, right by her side.
I still credit my brother for this because had I not gone through those struggles with him of like trying to find him treatment and not being able to find it, I probably wouldn't have been on board with this program.
The mission of Operation Hope is to help give people suffering from addiction options for help and for treatment. When the doors first opened, there were lines of people in need. The lobby was packed. The program and Devin were thriving.
He was in our second round of Angel training. The Angels are what we call our volunteers, and he made several placements for us. He was really excited to make our 150th placement. And then the last day that I saw him, we were at Deering Oaks at the Rally for Recovery, and we were celebrating 200 placements. And I got to have that memory of him.
On September 26, 2016, 29-year-old Devin Higgins relapsed and overdosed, and just like that, was gone.
I was really naive about it. I felt like once he was at that 1 year point that I didn't have to worry anymore, and I stopped worrying, and that was not the case. He was unraveling, and before I even knew that he had relapsed, he had died.
Devin's death hit the recovery community hard and was a sobering reminder about the struggles that all addicts go through on a daily basis. Jamie used it as inspiration to keep fighting the fight.
We were very open when Devin died about what happened. We didn't try to hide anything. It was clear in the obituary that he had overdosed and died alone. We didn't try to hide anything because I knew that Devin's story could potentially save people. One of our questions is, how did you hear about Operation Hope? And they were writing Devin Higgins. And some of them were people I knew that Devin had grown up with or I knew he was friends with, but a lot of strangers and a lot of people from outside our area, someone up north. saw it in the news and didn't want that to be them. Even though we've lost him, and that's a terrible struggle, I know that he's still helping to save lives right along with me.
As of today, the Scarborough branch of Operation Hope has helped place 287 people into treatment, and that will unfortunately continue. Not that they'll help them, but that people will be in need of help. And once again, I just want to thank Jamie for sharing that story with us.
Incredible that she's still working.
No, she took a couple months off and then said, you know what, this was Devin, and this is what he would have wanted me to do. So,
of course. Thanks, Lee.
Yep.
All right, I don't have a good transition here. I don't have much, but it's rainy the next couple days, and in a way that we haven't seen since May. You remember how terrible May was? Just terrible.
Totally remember it.
Terrible.
Yeah,
I guess
sure.
I remember these weathery things. A lot of weathery knowledge up there. Not room for anything else, as you may notice. But some heavy rain coming the next couple of days, and you can see it starting to move now in through parts of New Hampshire. This will be ours for the next 2 days. As I mentioned before, this doesn't look all that big, this system, right? But it's going to sit over Maine for 2 days straight, basically, just kind of wavering up and down the coastline. And its lack of eastward movement will give us a lot of net rainfall through Thursday night and then eventually ending on Friday morning. It's gusty in the wind department, but getting even worse, I think, tonight over western and southern Maine with wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour. That'll come with these downpours. By tomorrow morning, there's heavy downpours across much of the state, and then focusing over the mid-coast a bit more tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Might get a little break early on Wednesday night before more heavy rain moves in Wednesday night through Thursday, and at that point the heaviest stuff will be concentrated over down east and northern Maine before finally moving out of here on Friday morning. Wind gusts will be quite strong again tonight over western and southern Maine. Tomorrow starting to get into the mid-coast, and then focusing itself more so on Thursday over the mid-coast and down east. Wind gusts, I think, up to 50 miles an hour are going to be a possibility, and you'll notice the strongest winds will come with the heaviest rain. We call that downward momentum transfer. Basically, the rain pushes some of the winds from the upper atmosphere down to the surface, and so you'll see those two correlate quite a bit over the next few days. Rainfall amounts are pretty tremendous just from this first round, looking at 3 to 4 inches of rain through Friday morning. But we have another storm that we'll be watching on Monday, and look, when we add that to it, those are snowfall numbers, right? 6 inches, 5 inches, so that will do a lot of good for the drought. We will, of course, have to watch, though, for the possibility of flooding. Right now, guys, they do not have a flood watch in effect. The National Weather Service, though, basically saying we're going to keep an eye on it, particularly on Thursday, see if they need to put a flood watch in effect. We should be able to absorb most of it because it's been so dry. All of that to say, the weekend,
look at that,
looks good. So the weekend will be the bright spot in the 7-day forecast.
I like the sound of that.
Yep.
I'm focused on Halloween. All right, sir.
Thanks, Keith. Every year, doctors and researchers learn more about cancer.
But a new study found that Americans aren't always keeping up with the research, especially when it comes to causes of cancer. NBC's Erica Edwards tells us what we need to know to protect our health.
Obesity is strongly linked to several of the most common cancers in the U.S., but a new survey finds a majority of Americans are not aware of the risk.
This is critically important because in the next few years, obesity will replace tobacco as the leading modifiable risk factor for cancer.
The survey from the American Society of Clinical Oncology finds less than a third of people understand large amounts of excess weight contribute to 13 different types of cancer, including the breast, colon, and prostate. Alcohol is another cancer risk factor, correctly identified by only about a third of respondents. Less than a quarter know viruses can cause tumors. Nearly all cases of cervical cancer and a growing number of head and neck tumors are a direct result of human papillomavirus.
On the other hand, there are a number of factors that people are worried about, and maybe they shouldn't be so much.
Of 4,016 people surveyed, 14% thought cell phones cause cancer, and 8% incorrectly thought caffeine causes cancer.
There's really no good evidence for that whatsoever.
There is plenty of evidence to suggest Americans should give more weight to cancers linked to obesity. More than 70% of U.S. adults are overweight or obese, greatly increasing their odds of developing tumors. Erica Edwards, NBC News.
Pat Callahan here. Tell us what's coming up at 5:30.
And it was kind of an unusual scene at the U.S. Capitol today. A protester managed to get within several feet of President Trump, apparently by posing as a journalist. The man threw Russian flags and shouted as the president walked along with the Senate Majority Leader. It comes as the president was on the Hill to try to rally his party around tax reform. And the state gets its chance to question the lead investigator in the Anthony Sanborn case. They're trying to disprove the claim that other suspects were ignored in the Jessica Briggs murder. Chris Rose will have the latest on that in the next half hour on News Center at 5:30.
Thanks, Pat. News Center Now will be right back.
Hey, look, kids. There's Big Ben and there's Parliament.
All right, this will make sense for you in a second. I'm almost afraid to say this to Lee, but I want your opinion on this upcoming story.
Bring it.
So they just announced in London they were going to add a tax to vehicles, daily charge. This is $13 American, £10 a day, daily charge for cars that don't meet particular emission standards. And those, for the most part, are cars that are over 11 years old. That's in addition to the congestion charge that London is already levying on people. That's $15 a day. So you're about spending about $30 a day to go into the city if you're going to take a car. It's because of their pollution problem. So we're going to show you a graph here in a second, and then I'll let you have your opinion, which, again, I'm probably going to regret. Some of these cities, okay, Cairo, you talk about the particulates in the air, and a lot of cities in Asia are famous for this. Obviously, Beijing is one of them. Johannesburg actually was surprising to me, Mexico City. Here's London down here, above LA, which we always think of as having a bad pollution, and New York. So they're trying to do something to curb this. But how do you feel about that? Because one thing I think is you're probably not driving an old car just for the heck of it.
No, it's because you can't afford a new car.
Right. Most people don't drive around in their old cars and go, "Oh, good, I don't have to get a new one. I can drive this thing with duct tape to the fender." Like,
right. Just because I want to. And when we were in Athens a month ago, they did a similar thing where you had a certain license plate that ended with a certain letter, and that meant you could only be in the city on certain days of the week.
What?
Say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But guess what happened? Rich people just bought 2 cars and interswapped them. So I like the idea of the pollution, but I don't know if targeting old cars is the way to go.
If it passes the emissions test, it's fine.
Right, maybe you just change the test altogether.
Maybe make the test harder and then take care of it that way.
That's a lot of money. You'd never come to work if you had to pay that much.
Okay, maybe we'll continue this conversation later.
Oh, is the show over?
News Center 5:30
starts
right now.